Well, hello there. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Yes, today I have for you yet again another exciting video. And as you can see, the title suggests the great controversy. This is a Seventh-day Adventist belief that we are going to look at. It is a very crucial belief of theirs, right? Very important. And when you get down into the video, you are going to see why. As I would have done before in previous videos, I'm going to read from their fundamental belief, reading from out of the book itself, right, and tell you what they're actually saying. And while I'm reading, I'm basically going to give my take on whatever is being read. Right, guys? Trust me, I guarantee you that you will find this video very edifying, right? Through this video you'll get to understand more about Seventh-day Adventists and more about the things that they believe, because they'll tell you from this belief alone that many of their teachings is actually colored into this one central belief of theirs, the great controversy, because they believe that a great controversy is happening between Christ and Satan, something that started in heaven. When you hear just a little bit about it, you might say to yourself, then isn't this what Christians believe? Of course, Christians believe that there is a controversy then between God and Christ and Satan. But the way in which it is presented by Ellen G. White, it is radically different from how Christians would actually view it. Right? So with no further ado, let us get into the video. Alright, guys? Yes, guys, so here we go. What we believe about the great controversy. Right? So I'm going to read from it now, and you will see what Seventh-day Adventists have to say about the belief, the great controversy, belief number 8. It reads thus: all humanity is now involved in a great controversy between Christ and Satan regarding the character of God, his law, and his sovereignty over the universe. This conflict originated in heaven when a created being, endowed with the freedom of choice in self-exaltation, became Satan, God's adversary, and led a portion of the angels into rebellion. Now, before I even continue, let's pause for a minute. What is the reason for the controversy? It's regarding the character of God, his law, and his sovereignty over the universe. Now, in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, which they have here, 14 verse 12 to 14, and Ezekiel chapter 28 verse 12 to 18, both of those chapters tell you clearly what is the reason for this conflict. It was not because of the quote-unquote character of God or because of his law. It was simply because Satan coveted, right, the position of godhood. He wanted to be like God, and that was a prerogative that was not granted unto him. This is the reason for the conflict, not because of the character of God or because of his law. This is important to note, It is because this is the basis of their theology, and the great controversy is the reason why they find it so very hard that to grasp that Christians are no longer under the law. They believe that this is the cause of the conflict. So if this is the cause of the conflict, there can be no way that Christians could not be under the law, even though the scriptures tells us that clearly more than once in the New Testament. So you see, guys, if the very foundation is not correct, then you can well imagine, right, that the building itself, if the very pillar, right, is faulty, then the building itself will naturally be at fault. Right? They are basically wrong from the start, in their ideas where this is concerned, And so this is why it is so very hard for them to acknowledge and to come to terms that Christians are no longer under the law. They believe that it is the law itself is the reason for the controversy, whereas scripture tells us clearly in Isaiah and Ezekiel That is, it is simply because Satan wanted to be like God. Right? If you just stop and read those verses, nothing in it mention anything about God's law. Neither in Ezekiel nor in Isaiah chapter 14. But let us continue. Right? What every Adventist should know about the great controversy. Subheading: the protagonist. In reading Revelation 12, it becomes evident that the problems that pervade our planet today started in heaven. John tells us that war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels, Revelation 12 verse 7, fought. The dragons and his angels fought, Revelation 12 verse 7. There are only two groups. A middle ground does not exist. Either we are on the side of Michael or we are among the subjects of the dragon. But who are these two characters? Now this is where it gets interesting. Michael. The name Michael appears 5 times in 4 chapters of the Bible. Daniel chapter 10, Daniel chapter 12, Jude chapter 9, and Revelation chapter 12. In all these texts, there is a context of conflict. In Daniel 10, Michael fights against the prince of the kingdom of Persia. That is Daniel 10 verse 13. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to look at Daniel before I even continue, right? Before I even go to Daniel chapter 10 verse 13. We're going to have a little contextual study, beginning first from Daniel chapter 9. Now in Daniel chapter 9, guys, I'm going to ask you to do a little reading for me, right? I'm not going to read the entire thing, but you'll see in Daniel chapter 9 that Daniel was uttering a prayer unto God regarding a vision that he has seen, right? Or regarding some issues then basically that is basically plaguing the mind of Daniel, right? And so he offered a prayer unto God, right? Now Daniel chapter 9 verse 21 says that, yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel. Now note, Gabriel is not a man, Gabriel is an angel, but surely he has the appearance of a man. So this is why Daniel says the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. And having said that, the angel Gabriel began to explain some things to Daniel. I'm not going to read what he is explaining. You can read the rest of the chapter for yourself. But then in chapter 10, it begins by saying, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. Right? In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Right? This was the time in which he was fasting. Right? And in the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, then I lifted mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body was also like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves.
Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, that is the same vision of this appearance of a man, a certain man. Right? I, Daniel, alone saw the vision therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained in me no strength, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words. And when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. And behold, a hand touched me, which set me upon my hands, upon my knees rather, and upon the palms of my hands. Now it is important to note that the hand that touched him is not the same certain man whose eyes was like fire. It was not the same certain man who touched him. It was someone else who had actually touched him. Right? That person who touched him, it says in verse 11, and he said unto me, O Daniel, O man greatly beloved, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Now, it's just as we'd seen the vision of the man, how he was weak and so forth. Now he was trembling at this person who touched him, who was not the same certain man whose eyes was like that of fire. Now, one could assume that this person who now touched him and gave him strength, right, telling him to stand upright, it could be Gabriel who had spoken to him in Daniel chapter 9. You could assume that. But if it was Gabriel, it seemed that Daniel knew Gabriel by name. Right? So if this was the same Gabriel, I believe that Daniel, it is my opinion, that Daniel would have mentioned that it is the same Gabriel. Right? Because he knew Gabriel by name. But he didn't say it's Gabriel. So to say it's Gabriel, it would be an assumption. But one could also assume that it is not Gabriel, since Daniel had knew Gabriel by name. But however, who this person is who touched him, I don't believe it is important. So let us continue to verse 12. Then said he unto me, that is the same person who had touched him, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart. He said, Daniel, fear not. Then he said unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. Now, if you look in any commentary, they will tell you that this prince is more likely either Satan or one of his minions. Right? One of his persons who are under him, because certainly a human being could not have withstood an angel. Right? So this is either Satan or one of his minions. So the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now, here's the big loophole in what SDA is trying to say here. Right? When they said that Michael fights against the prince of the kingdom of Persia in verse 13. In verse 13 of Daniel chapter 10, notice it didn't say that Michael took over the battle, right? And dealt with the prince of the kingdom of Persia. It says that Michael came to help him. That is a certain man the individual that touched Daniel and gave him strength. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood him, but Michael came and helped him. Now, this seems to me like a tag team. It didn't say that Michael took over, took over the battle, No, Michael helped him. So in other words, Michael, in partnership with that other angel, was able to overcome the prince who withstood the angel. Let that sink in. So if Jesus is Michael, Why would Jesus need to be partnering with another angel in order to overcome that angel? When they want to say it is Satan or one of his minions, why would Jesus, who is God, need to partner with another angel in order to overcome an evil angel? Shouldn't Jesus be strong enough to take on that angel all by himself? This is what you really need to think about in that, and this is a big loophole in Seventh-day Adventist ideas right here. That Michael fight against the prince of the kingdom of Persia. He didn't only fight against him, he helped the angel. So you can say that it's both of them together was able to withstand that angel. Jesus doesn't need help from any angel to whip Satan's ass, then, so to speak. He doesn't need the help of any angel to do such, right? No help whatsoever does he need from any angel, for he is God. But yet still we see Michael basically needs help. Michael, along with, and this is not a discredit to Michael, right? No disrespect to Michael, of course. But the fact of the matter is, Michael, in partnership with that angel, was able to overcome whoever this angel is that is called the prince of the kingdom of Persia, whether Satan or one of his minions. Secondly, here's the second loophole. In verse 13, it tells you that Michael is one of the chief princes. So there are many chief princes, Michael is only one of them. That means that he is in peer, right? He's in the same league with those other chief princes because they are his peers. God has no peer, right? Let that sink in. God has no peer. He is without peer. In the book of Isaiah, many times God says out of his own mouth that there is none like me. God has no peer. But here we see that Michael has peers. He is one of the chief princes. He's one of the chief princes. Now I know they are going to go to Daniel chapter 12, and say, oh, the Bible calls him the great prince. But let's not jump the gun here. Let's just work with the part that Michael is one of the chief princes. We'll soon get to Daniel chapter 12. But so far, you can see that there are already loopholes in Seventh-day Adventist teachings. Now let us continue in verse 14. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. This is the same person that had touched my Daniel, right? He has come to let him know what will befall the people in the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitudes of the sons of men touched my lips. And I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. So one angel now touched him, right? But there was another angel that stood before him, right? And touched his lips because he was weak and so forth. Right? So far there are two angels that is basically in Daniel's company. Two figures then, so to speak. Verse 17 says, for how can I? So he's now speaking to the person that stood, that touched his lips in verse 16. For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there retained me no strength in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and strengthened me. Now it could be the same individual that had touched him from before, earlier on in the verse, or it could be someone else. Right? Right, guys, in Daniel chapter 10. But whoever that person is, it doesn't matter for now. No, it could be the same individual that had touched him earlier on in the chapter. Right? Because it says, then there came again. There came again, Seem like it's suggestive of the person who touched him before touch him again. The New Living Translation put it in this way. It says, then the one who looked like a man touched me again, and I felt my strength returning. So it could be the very same angel, right? Verse 19 says, and said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I am come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Greece shall come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, that there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael, your prince. So there is none that holdeth with him in these things, but Michael, your prince. Right? Other translation says, there is none who contends by my side against these, except Michael, your prince. Right? NASB says, yet there is no one who stands firmly with me against these forces, except Michael, your prince. The NLT says, no one helps me against these spirit princes, except Michael, your prince. So Michael, our prince, help this angel, right, to battle these forces of darkness, these princes. So Michael, in partnership with those other, with him, right? Michael partners with him in the battle against those princes. Now, if Michael is indeed God, as I've said before, why, if Michael is indeed Christ, and we know that Christ is God, is a divine being, why would a divine being need to be helping, right, or be in partnership with other angels to battle forces of darkness? I'm going to show you a contrast very soon, right, in showing Revelation chapter 12 that Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, right, and his angels, and it tells you that the dragon and their angels prevail not, right? When Jesus met the demon possessed individual, you know the famous teaching all too well in the New Testament, and it tell you how the demons was so afraid of Jesus, saying, have you come to torment us? And so forth. They were cowering in fear, right? Asking him to send them, right, into the pigs and so forth, right? They were begging Jesus to send them in the pig, and they were so terrified of Jesus' presence. We know who you are, Son of the Most High God, right? But yet still, the evil angels here doesn't seem to be terrified of Michael at all. They are so brazen to even challenge Michael in a physical battle, right? Whereas they were afraid of Jesus, they clearly showed no fear of Michael whatsoever. And this is a big hole again in Seventh-day Adventist teaching. James tell you that the devils know that there is one God, and they tremble. They tremble at this. The devils are afraid of God. They would tremble in the presence of God, just as how they would tremble at the sight of Jesus, because they thought that Jesus was going to torment them. And so they trembled. They were afraid of him. And mind you, that Jesus at this time, was in human form. How much more now, by the time of Revelation, right, that Jesus was now before his incarnation, right, he would have been in his divine form, right? He would have been in his divine form by the time of Daniel chapter 10. He would have been in his divine form, right? So no way, at the very sight of Jesus, those angels wouldn't even look to be contending with him. They would flee immediately. If they showed such fear in his human form, how much more in his divine form? They would have flee immediately. So there is no way Michael could actually be Jesus, because if he was, angels wouldn't even be looked into contend, right? With the angel and Michael, because the angel did say there's only one who contends with him in this, and that is Michael. So those evil forces wouldn't even be looking to contend with the angel, where they want to say Gabriel or whomever, and Michael. They would flee immediately. They showed no fear whatsoever at the presence of Michael, right? So this shows you that there's a clear difference between Michael and Jesus. Jesus invokes fear in the demons. Michael does not, right? Michael does not. Now, what else can we point out in Daniel chapter 10? Right? Before I even get to Daniel chapter 12, right? Let's go further on. In all these texts, there's a context, right? In Daniel 10, Michael fights against the kingdom, prince of the kingdom of Persia. I dealt with that already. In Daniel 12, he stand up to free the people of God from the time of trouble. We soon get back to that. In Jude 9, he battles against Satan for the body of Moses. And in Revelation 12, he again fights against the devil. I dealt with Revelation 12 already and Daniel chapter 10. I'll soon get to Daniel 12 and Jude 9. The description that is given of Michael in Daniel 10 is identical to the description of the heavenly being that appeared to the prophet Ezekiel, which is shown in Ezekiel 1 verse 26 to 28, as well as to the apostle John, Revelation 1 verse 12 to 18. Now let's stick a whole heap of pin here. When you read in Daniel chapter 10, right? When you read in Daniel chapter 10, you can see clearly that after the description is basically given of this certain man, right? Daniel mentioned about, the angel now mentioned about Michael, who is one of the chief princes, came to help him in Daniel chapter 13, Daniel 10 verse 13. But in no way does it say that the description given before is the one and the same Michael, right? In verse 13. Seventh-day Adventists just basically make an assumption and say that it is the same person that was described before is Michael mentioned in verse 10. No, they basically assume that Michael is the very same person that is mentioned of in the previous verses, and it is not the same person. They are just basically assuming. They cannot prove from Daniel chapter 10 that the description of the certain man is the very same Michael. No, because it doesn't. In the chapter, it doesn't says that it is the one and it is Michael. Sure, Michael name come up, but it doesn't say that it is Michael. Right, guys? So this is basically the blunder here. They are basically assuming that the description given in Daniel 10 of the certain man is Michael, and that is just a pure assumption, one that cannot be proven, right? They go on to say Ezekiel called him the glory of the Lord. Fine. In fact, the name Michael means who is like God. No, the word Michael is shared by some other Israelites. When you look at the Hebrew word for Michael, which means who is like God, if they use this argument to say just because Michael, the name Michael means who is like God, this means that Michael is Christ and is God, then they have to say that those other Israelites are God himself. Right? This is what this, if you ask me, is their weakest argument out of all. Right? It's an argument that cannot work. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. No, it says now that John identified him as one like the Son of Man, that is the Lord Jesus Christ. And they show the scripture text. In Revelation 19, Jesus is the commander of the heavenly army. Right? In Jewish literature, Michael is identified as the angel who protects Israel. Understandably, the angel of the Lord, who is the Lord himself, encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. An ancient Jewish tradition holds that Michael is the one responsible for sending the demons to the abyss. An action that in the New Testament is attributed to Jesus Christ. Therefore, we can affirm that Michael is another name referring to Christ. Now, Psalms chapter 34, you see how they basically use Psalms 34 and basically say that the angel of the Lord who encamps around God people is the Lord himself. These guys are really something else, right? Just because now that Michael is the one who is responsible for sending the demons to the abyss, and they say that that is attributed to Jesus Christ in Luke chapter 8 verse 31, right? This now means that Michael has to be Christ. No, what they don't understand, is that anything that the angel does is basically attributable to God or to Christ. Jesus is the one who is in charge of all of the angels. Whatever the angel does, it is on the command of Christ. So it is then attributed to Christ. And in attributing to Christ, all things that is attributed to Christ is ultimately attributed to God. This is the chain now, because Christ does all things for the will of God. Everything that happens, whether good or bad, is ultimately boils back down to God, because God has to allow it. If God doesn't allow it, it cannot happen. So even if an angel come to you and rescue you from peril here, it is still understood that it's God who actually rescued you, because angels can't come and rescue without God giving them the authority. So it is still ultimately attributed to God, and this is what Seventh-day Adventists fail to recognize, right? Then they go on to say that Michael represents a God who comes to help us and to fight our battles, quoting 2 Chronicles 32 verse 8, and they're applying it to Michael. Michael is the God who fights for us, quoting Deuteronomy 3 verse 22 and applying it to Michael. However, why does Michael, our God, fight? Here is Moses' answer. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. Deuteronomy 20 verse 4, emphasis added. Michael fights against the dragon because he wants to save us. Now, Michael is a God who is not feared by Satan and his angels, but Jesus Christ is a God who is feared by Satan and all the host of hell. See the difference between the two? The two is clearly not in the same league, right? One is feared and one isn't. One doesn't need to be in a physical battle with Satan because he can just let him vanish by just his word alone. The other has to go into a physical fight with him. That is Michael, because Michael is not so powerful to let him vanish by his own words, but Christ is that powerful and can make him vanish just by the word of his mouth, because he is his creator. You see the difference between the two of them? Guys, I'm going to end this video right here and not make it longer. My phone won't be able to post the video if it is too lengthy, right? We will continue with Daniel chapter 12 and Jude 9. I was to look at it, but for time's sake, I'm going to have to leave it for another video. So I'll stop right there and pick up in my next video.
Yes, so there you have it, guys. There you have it. And if you enjoy this video, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Bye bye now.